Hey, it's Bob here from Sorrento Hill. Um, Today is one of those kind of gloomy, halfway gloomy days, but going to be a little too cold. We've got some freezing weather coming in the next few days, so it's going to be too cold to do cordwood. So I've got some other things that I'm working on, and the thing I'm working on today is my door. I had shared that earlier. It's been several months since I've worked on it. I did the outside of the door, and today I'm working on the inside of the door. I've got um, all my frame pieces stained. Um, I got those sanded and stained yesterday, and then today I'm going to be starting the assembly, and it's kind of interesting. I've already glued or drilled and glued dowel pins in. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 places, one for each upright to kind of hold everything together and prevent any shifting. Um, this particular frame piece, this upright, it's not perfectly straight, which is not all uncommon with this wood. Um, it seems like that perfectly straight board um, doesn't hardly exist. And sometimes too, you can have one you think is perfectly straight, but then when you lay it against something else, you realize it's off a little. This one is actually off probably about 1/4 of an inch from being straight. So, so what I'm going to do is I'll get it square and flush on this end. It's about the upper third of the board where it curves a little bit, and I'll go ahead and put the glue on. I'll get the bottom 2/3 of it secured and clamped down, and then I will use a clamp to force that top part over, and then put in my little nails. And speaking of nails, what I've got are these square nails. I'll have to give a closer shot of those. Um, these are just a square, old-fashioned square nail with what they call a rose head. The bottom side, for the front side, what I did is I've got screws in through the plywood into my cross pieces and my frame pieces for the bottom, or for the outside of it. Well, I don't want to screw in from all the way from the other side. That would take forever. And I thought these would be really nice for the inside. They're an old-fashioned square nail. They're newly made, but they're an iron nail. And since they're iron, they will rust. In fact, these in the bag have gotten some rust on them. But I thought those would look really nice from the inside, nice and decorative. And so I'll put those about every 6 inches. I'll get those up close to where the bend is, and then I'll twist it into place and finish securing it. Then I'll clamp down the other side and then make my measurements for my cross piece, and I'll cut my first 2 cross pieces, and then I'll start fitting in my oak and cedar pieces that I've already cut. They've been sitting back here for a while, and hopefully I remember which pieces go with which, because what I did is they're long pieces, and I cut them in half so that I can match them up top and bottom. So the top and bottom oak pieces are going to be from the same board, all in a vertical direction. It just gives it a little, I don't know. Some people might like it better random. I like it when it has a nice pattern. It'll look the same on the bottom panel as it will on the middle panel. And then, of course, the top panel is the fun part. That's where I'll have to cut individual pieces. And let me get my pattern pieces here. I already did that on the other side. And what I did, since this window is symmetrical, I measured, make sure that it's the same on both sides. um, as far as the framework, so that I don't have to have anything different. But what I've got my little pattern pieces that I use to cut the fan shape or sunbeam shaped pieces on the other side. I've got them cut out, and then I'll just use them to cut out the fan pieces on the top part. I think probably what I'll do is I'll just set these in place just to make sure which it is. And then I've also got on each of them, so that I'll remember, I've got it marked whether it's an oak piece or a redwood or a red cedar piece, so the sides will look the same. So I kept my pattern pieces. And now I'll get to work with gluing, and then before I put these nails in, I'll be drilling pilot holes. I already tried that out last night to make sure which works, trying to pound these square nails in with they got a blunt tip, so you have to drill a pilot hole. And I figured that would prevent the wood from splitting also. And these nails are long enough that they'll go through this board, the frame piece, through the plywood, and about, probably 5/8 of an inch or so into the board on the back side. So that should secure these pretty well and give me a good solid door. All right, off I go. First I'll be putting glue on, and I think what I'm going to do is put the glue right here, and I'll just turn the board over onto it and clamp it down in place. I'm just using a Type Bond 2 wood glue, and this will take quite a bit. Probably before this door is done, I'll be having to go buy some more glue. Fun part, get to play in it, spreading the glue out. I'm just using a framing square on the ends. To make sure that I'm flush with the one on the other side, and with my plywood, I'll go up to where it has the bend in it, and fun part is when you move it one place, it pivots in the other. This is where I wish I had a lot more of the smaller clamps instead of all these long ones, but it'll work. I thought about starting this last night, but I really wanted my stain to set before I did this. Okay, I'm happy with that. Put another clamp up here. And then I'll start drilling my holes and putting my screws in. And I already figured this out. I put one 2 inches up and in the center. And of course I got my thing in the way. And then every 6.5 inches from there, in goes the nail. I'm going to try to orient these so they all kind of go in the same direction. So I'll go 6.5 inches up from there. Another 6.5. My little drill bit loads up quite a bit going that far down. This is just an 1/8 inch drill bit. And I'm doing a pretty good job of getting, well, right in the middle. Eyes must be working good today. Those suckers are hard to drive in with the size. And trust me, from the one that I pulled out, the boards I glued nailed together yesterday just to try this, they are hard to pull out too. not go in as easy as a round nail because they flare out in the middle, so it's really pushing the wood aside. And just putting these down until they're flush instead of trying with the top with the surface. Top piece. Don't really need that clamp there. Get that drawn in. Out. There we go. Okay, it's working fairly well. What I'm going to have to do is use my piece of scrap wood for that edge to clamp on. This thing is heavy. Here we go. Sometimes you have to get creative, but this way I've got a good surface to clamp on and keep my clamps straight, and also my clamp surface, this board will keep it lined up with the bottom part as well. So, okay. All right, and there you go. Now I have a board that was, this end was a 1/4 inch over, at least a 1/4 inch, if not 5/8 inch over towards the inside, and by securing it here, then I'm able to pull it out here, and then I'll drill the rest of my holes and put the rest of my nails, and that'll clamp it. And I just use my nails as the clamp for the glue to set, so it's a combination of glue and nails holding it down. So by doing all the operations at once, drilling all the holes, I'm not having to go back and forth. And I think it makes it go a little faster. Clamp sticking out. I should have had the tail go that way, so I don't run into it. Okay. But I've never been accused of always doing things the easiest or smartest way. seeing some glue come out to the side, some squeeze out. So that means I used enough glue and I'm getting a good bond. All right, one side on. I really like that look with those rose head nails. I'll have to give you a closer look at it too. Now I'll clamp on the other side, measure and cut my first cross piece, get my wood sorted out so that I can start putting it in place. So I've got my oak and my cedar pieces figured out. And what I did on the cedar, this is when I bought the car siding that's going around the ends of my rafters and the eaves of the house. I bought some extra pieces, and then what I did is I just took this on my table saw, and it's tongue and groove, and I just ripped the tongue off one side. On the groove side I didn't do anything. That way it's got that little bevel, and I thought that little bevel looked pretty nice in there. So you've got a little detail between the oak and the cedar, that little bevel reveal that I thought looks pretty nice. So I got this piece in place, and then I've gone and made sure that they'll actually fit, and so then I will just figure out the best way I like to grain. Put a little glue down, tap it into place. The next one, glue down, tap it into place, and those will be all in. And then I've got my centerpiece cut, and the centerpiece, it's got a groove on either side because it's going to have panels on the top and the bottom, and then that'll just fit down over the edge, and my panels are all secured by the groove or the relief that I've got cut into my cross pieces. So I won't have to worry about glue coming loose or anything like that, and there won't be any nails here. The only nails and screws in this are fastening the cross pieces and the framework to the plywood. There's no fasteners involved in any of this. And it'll be the same way up top, where I have the sunburst effect. It's glued in, and the pieces join into they'll tie into the side rails and the top rail to hold them in place. So fewer fasteners. All right, let me figure out where I put my glue. Oh, here it is. I'm real bad about that. Drives me nuts. All right, I'll just put me down a bead of glue. I'll put some glue at the bottom. Now I won't put any glue at the sides. If wood expands and shrinks, it does that across the grain, not with the grain. In other words, the length won't change, but the width might. Soft wood like cedar doesn't expand as much, but the hardwoods like oak will. So I'll just use my dead blow hammer and scrap. You always keep scraps of wood around. That way I don't damage this. Make sure it's seated. Alright, one in. And then my cedar. I already dry fit these. I did a dry fit on these because there's nothing like getting everything glued up and then realizing that something's not going to fit right. That's a mess. some of this wood not quite straight, and that's where, you know, right here it's sticking up a little bit. When I put that cross piece in, that'll bring that down level with the rest of it. So it'll look pretty good. And, you know, because sometimes when you go in with rustic, you don't worry necessarily about perfect. But I want it to be as smooth and good looking as possible. Get some glue on there. Okay. See how nicely that went down. Okay, now I go to the other side. Again, it's a good idea to have a piece of scrap wood, then you don't have to worry about even hammer marks or anything like that on the wood you're working on. That's why I cut that piece off. I'll use it in the door itself. I'll save that. And on there where it's sticking up a little bit, I'll put a weight on that, pull it down while the glue dries, so I don't end up with an odd looking piece. Glue squeeze out there. I'll have to wipe that off. All right. It's got me this handy little dowel drilling deal. If you're putting it on the ends, on the end of a wood, it's got these pegs that center, and it's got 3 different size holes for 3 different size dowels: 1/4, 3/8, and 5/16. I'm using 3/8 dowels, and if you don't have enough width in the wood for that to work, then you can determine where you want the center to be, and it's got this little fence that secures it. And then center the mark that I made in the center of it. Drill my hole. And then what I'll do is I'll measure how far I put that one in. I'll do it the same on the other side. valve hole for the other end. And then I'll just do a dry fit here, make sure that it'll work. Get that one right there. It's a pain. I really should get me a spreader to do this, and I guess use a piece of scrap wood instead of my finger. It gets the job done. If you can't get messy, what fun is it? There you go. I don't know if you can hear that whining sound in the background. The blower from my solar kiln just kicked in. This is where it'd be really handy if you had two people, one to hammer and one to see if it's gone in far enough, because it hasn't. It's all back and forth. Okay. get all my tools and junk out of the way so I can put the boards on this next section. Then that cross piece, and then time for the fun, cutting out the pattern pieces, using the jigsaw and the belt sander to get the edges smooth and just fitting them in. And if all goes according to plan, I'll have this done by the time it gets dark today. All right, I have got the first 2 panels done, got the nails in. It's a nice detail, isn't it? And the piece below the window, and now I've got my pattern pieces laid in. Make sure I didn't lose any of them, make sure they were still going to fit. Got my pattern pieces laid up for the top, and I will start cutting out pieces and putting them in. All right, you guys like the hat? It's cold out here. It's well below freezing. A week ago today it was 74 degrees and I was out cutting trees in a t-shirt. And today I'm out here wearing my Elmer Fudd hat and a sweatshirt and a Carhartt and a flannel shirt and trying to stay warm. So what I'm doing today, I just thought I'd show you. I finished up the door over the weekend. You can see the little iron nails that I put into it, and that's what she looks like when she's done. Now there you go, that's a little better view of it because it doesn't skew the angle, and you can kind of see the sunburst that I put up there. Now I had someone ask me on the Facebook page, how did you come up with the design for the starburst? Where'd you get that from? And I got it from my imagination. I wanted to do something that looked nice, it looked unique, and so I kind of sat there and figured out, okay, I've got this big a circle, and I wanted to put alternating pieces and start with oak and end with oak, and how many pieces I'd need to go, and about what size I wanted to make them. And so I figured 19 pieces, measured the circumference on the radius of this window to figure out if I had that many pieces, how wide each would need to be at the base. And this is a 180-degree circle, so then I knew how wide I needed each one to be at the base, and then I just calculated out what kind of angle I would need. And then just sketched it out on some paper and figured my angles and came up with a design that I liked. And then I made me a paper template out of craft paper, and I laid that down on the area where this was going to go with the window cut out. I didn't have the window in yet, just the cutout. And then I cut out the window, and I transferred my sketch drawings, what my dimensions were going to be, over to the pattern. Marked those lines out with a fine tip Sharpie. And when I was happy with how it looked, then I cut the pattern pieces out. I numbered them, starting here with number 1, 2, 3, 4, on around until I got to 19. And then just put an O or an R on each one, so I knew if that needed to be an oak or a red cedar piece, and cut them out. Now, I don't have a bandsaw, so I'm using a jigsaw, and cuts aren't perfectly straight. What I tried to do is on my table saw, on each piece of wood, I put a perfectly straight, edge. So I've got one straight edge on each of these, and then the other one, it's about as straight as I could get it with a jigsaw. And then I use my belt sander to smooth them down. Kind of have to do some cutting and fitting. If I was a really smart guy and had thought about it better in advance, I would have made a jig for my table saw, but at the time I was doing this, I did not have a sled on my table saw, and so I could have used it to make my cuts, just figure the angles. Again, there's math involved, there's geometry involved and all that. I guess you could just sketch it up and adjust and go from there, but I kind of used some math to do it. So Tom Stewart, my high school geometry teacher, would be proud of me because I actually used my geometry for this. Now, around the edge of the window, I fit them in as best as I could, but sometimes there's some little gaps. So what I'm going to do is I will take measure the circumference here of this radius because I lost the paper that had that on it. And then I'll take me about a quarter 3/8 inch wide, probably about 3/8 inch wide strip of oak, and make it the length that I need. And then I'll set my table saw up with the blade up about halfway through that, and just make a bunch of cuts that will allow me to curve that oak trim around the radius. And so that will cover around the edges here where it isn't perfect, and I'll have me a nice curved piece of oak trim around the top edge of the window. So that'll look pretty good. That's not something I'm going to do today because it's too cold. Trying to do delicate work with my fingers out here, it just doesn't work real well. So anyways, that's what she looks like. And I've now got both sides done. I'll have to do a little trimming on the edge. One of the things that you encounter is sometimes when you're using these 8-foot long boards, and especially these are free boards, so you know, some of them are good and straight and some of them aren't quite as straight. And just like I showed you on the opposite side where I had to, you know, the board was crooked, it actually curved in, so I had to secure the bottom half here and then take the top half and use the top third of it here and use a clamp to pull it out into place, and then clamp it down so the glue dried and I got my pieces, or my nails in. Well, on this side here, it was curved out. I'd say probably a good 3/8 of an inch. So I had to secure the bottom section and get it pulled in as best as I could, and then take the top section and pull it in. And now what I did to clamp the top in, I don't have any clamps that wide. So what I actually use is one of these ratchet straps. A ratchet strap and just a couple scrap blocks of wood, little pieces like this, put up against the side so it covers both pieces of the wood, and then put the ratchet strap over that so I can pull in and pull it together. This is pine, and it's soft enough that if I use the ratchet strap just against the edge of the wood here, it would put an indentation on it. But I put that little piece of scrap oak up there, and I'm able to get a good pull on it and clamp and pull it together. That gets it clamped together so that the glue on the dowel and my butt joint there comes together well. Were I to do this over again, which I may make a door for inside, a couple interior doors. They won't be as thick and heavy as this. But were I to do it over again, what I would do is, instead of using butt joints here, I would, because sometimes they meet up real well and sometimes they don't. But instead of doing a butt joint and a dowel, I think were I to do it again, what I would do is actually do a lap joint where I would, these are what, 1 1/4 inches, it's 5/4, so I'd go 5/8, cut a 5/8 channel here and then on the bottom side of this, cut it 5/8 so that they would overlap, and then I could join them with a nail and have a lap joint. The benefit of that right now, all I've got is the end grain here and the side grain here is that glue together. That's all I got for glue. If I did a half lap joint, then I'd have all this nailing surface, all this surface on both of those boards as a gluing surface, and it would really make a good strong joint and probably be a little prettier, but you know, hindsight's 20/20. But that's one of the fun things about doing these kind of projects is you can say, well, you know, this went pretty well on this one, but I think on the next one I'll do something a little different. Especially when you're just you know, this is the first door I've ever made, and so I'm pretty pleased with how it came out. Now if I were to do 2 or 3 or 4 more, every one of them would look a little bit nicer than this one, and every one of them would have a little finer detail in it, because every time you do one of these projects you learn from it. You know, I'm not a professional cabinet maker, I'm not a professional woodworker, so I'm kind of learning as I go along here and figuring it out as I go along. Is it perfect? No, but it's something that I made, and it's going into a house I'm making, and it's unique, and for the rest of my life, as long as my brain is still about me, I can look at it and know I did that, and that's a good feeling. It's not something I just went and bought at a box store. I did that. Is it perfect? No. Could it be better? Yes. But you know what? I'm pretty happy with it. And you know, when I look at it, it makes me smile, and there's a good sense of satisfaction, and that makes up for it not being perfect. So don't be afraid to try something that you've never ever done before, because when you get it done, you'll never be able to say, well, I've never done that, because you will have done it. Again, will it be perfect? No. Will people come over and point out, well, this joint isn't as tight as it should be? Well, you know what? You're right. It's not as tight as it should be. But you know, why don't you go build something so I can come over and critique it, right? So don't be afraid to try something. Don't be afraid if it's not perfect. Make it as sound as you can. Put yourself into it and just enjoy the process, and enjoy looking at it afterwards and thinking, you know what? I did that. I didn't just go out and buy something. I did that. And that's very satisfying. All right, enough talk. It's cold. My hands are getting cold. I got some stuff I got to do, so I'm going to get to work. Until the next one, you guys take it easy, stay warm, and don't be afraid to take a risk and do something and have some fun with it while you're doing it. Because the worst that'll happen is you'll have to take it apart and start over, right? But you will have learned along the way. Talk to you later.